Welcome back, Bernardos. We're ready to wrap this up today with a look at Robert Smithson and the new tradition of earthworks that comes to fore the end of the 1960s, the beginning of the 1970s. This is a unique diversion from traditional gallery going in that this artwork is site specific. And there's a lot of reasons why it emerges at this time. You guys probably know that Earth Day, the first one was celebrated in 1970, and it was really the beginning of the art movement, or the political movement that would reference the significance of preserving the planet and emphasizing its concerns. You have to also understand that these artists are very frustrated with the limited standard list of people who are very, very profitable in the gallery system. People like Andy Warhol, Richard Serra, they want to revolt and take their works out of the gallery system, make it almost impossible for someone to profit off of art as a way to kind of commercialize the world of art at the time. The focus here for looking at this thing, you can kind of see we've gone all the way from a wide array of styles at the end of the 19th century, 19th century, moving forward in the 20th, and that has been distilled down to a very narrow range of works that then begins to diverge again. And this is one of those diversions where you really kind of challenge whether or not art going has to happen inside a gallery space. So it's a different body of work, and you can call this earthworks, environmental art. It's also known as land art. And it uses site-specific locations that are manipulated by the artist to achieve an experience that you have to go to the site to see. Of course, you guys are familiar with Spiral Jetty. This is a work that was built in 1970. Smithson basically contracted locals to help him turn this like abandoned mining site into a work of art. It's located in the north arm of the Great Salt Lake River. A railroad cut the lake in half, and this is the northern part of the river that really doesn't have like an outlet for the chemicals and the sediment to like circulate to go anywhere else. What that did for Smithson, who happened to be a geologist, is it created a wonderful experiment, not just for art, but also for science and the effect of entropy as an art making element. You guys probably recognize that word from your science classes, where we're talking about change over time and going from a very structured state into something that's a lot where energy kind of dissipates over time. That basically is what happens here at Spiral Jetty. You see, when it was built, it was at water level, so you could actually walk out on it, and the pink water of Salt Lake would be right around the land formations, which were black. The rock you see in the background, that's basalt, and it was moved and shaped into this formation. Basically, using what was already there in the land, Smithson has created this art that's also going to be kind of like a science experiment. Right after that, the site flooded and it stayed submerged for about 20 years. It wasn't until the early 2000s when the shape started to, the water started to recede. And what you had happening is salt collecting on top of the basalt. So it didn't look black anymore. It kind of looked like snow. It looked like white. And that gave nature a larger role to play in making the artwork what it is today. So this is what it looked like back in 1970 when it was installed. And because Smithson knew people wouldn't be able to all go to the site, he documented it with a book that he wrote, a film that he made, and of course there's also the artwork itself. So it really is an artwork in three parts. To appreciate it, you need all three of those to comprehend what he was going for. Now, in terms of a spiral shape, this is a shape that we've seen in petroglyphs and cave paintings and artworks that go all the way back to the Paleolithic. There were some caves in the region too that featured petroglyphs that the native North Americans had made in the rock formations there, and it seemed a shape that would lend itself well to this. You probably should make note that the spiral jetty, it actually wasn't in this shape originally. It was kind of a J that went on out farther and just made a simple spiral. Smithson changed his idea after he saw it going in and decided to make it a tighter spiral that would actually wrap in and around itself. So it's kind of a play with it process over time. He sought out a space that had really dramatic color. He had traveled to South America and had seen some of the lake formations way up in the mountains that have little outlet and little circulation. It allows chemicals and sediment to settle into that body or water, and it creates all kinds of different colors you would not expect to see in a body of water, like greens and acid yellows. Here, it's the pink formations. There are apparently crustaceans who thrive in this warm, salty water, and they make the water look as if it's turning pink. So that seemed like an attractive solution for him to seek out. He basically allows nature to play a role here, and you can see this formation on Google Maps from space. It's about, what was it, about 2.5 hours north of Salt Lake. When I visited in 2015, I had to rent a car and drive away from the reading, and it was literally like going on a pilgrimage. You start out in the busy city, and as farther you go, those things begin to fade away. You drive out into a private road and then onto a private ranch where you're looking for this marking for Spiral Jetty. And I literally rolled down the windows, turned off the air conditioner, and just listened to the buzz of the world kind of fade away. It was very much like a pilgrimage because we're winding back on ourselves. I was born in 1970s, so I guess it had special significance for me too. It seemed like we were going back to the beginning. I traveled alone and wanted to really see not only the formation, but how it interacted with the earth around it. And that's when I started noticing the salt, the formations that I'll show you a little bit later. Here is a picture of Smithson with his wife, Nancy Holt, who's also a land artist. Her work, Sun Tunnels, is another 2 hours into the interior, and she arranged culverts according to the cardinal directions of the sun and the sunset. When you're there at sunset at specific times of year, the winter solstice and the summer solstice, you can see the sunset right in the middle of the sun tunnel, and it just bathes you in light. So here you can see some gallery works by Smithson that make use of those earth and land materials. You have a box of stone on the right, a series of boxes there, and then you have a dirt that's put into a mound. Typically, the one at the DMA that we have has mirrors that are interspaced through it, and it makes a really interesting shape every time it's installed. But these are materials that are unconventional, and they stress the importance of the earth playing a role in the art that we make. So this site-specific work is kind of tied, I guess, figuratively to the serpent mound that we saw in the image set from North Native American early mound culture. So I want you to make the connection for sure there. I'm told also, and I don't completely understand the science, some of you probably do, that the crystalline salt formations, when it makes a shape, it forms a fractal. And when the fractal breaks and makes the next cube, it turns into a spiral. So the media, the imagery, it all seems to point toward this being the shape that needed to be there. And it's just an interesting way to make something look like it's always been part of the landscape when it's actually a constructed reality. It's kind of synonymous with places like Stonehenge, places that basically, the world has kind of forgotten, for lack of a better word, but then rediscovered. That was the impression that Smithson was trying to give this place. Unfortunately, 3 years after this, Smithson was working on another site in Texas, no less, in Amarillo, his Amarillo ramp, when his plane crashed on the way to complete that site. So he died fairly young. With his interests in geology and rock formations and world art. This was a sad loss, but earth artwork has gone on. Some of the most engaging places you've probably seen that engage art were conceived as artworks, and there's a real strong connection to Christo and Maya Lin later on. So here's an image of the water that I saw breaking on the edge of the salt. And you can see the salt formations, crystalline salt formations kind of condensing there on the side. It looks like snow. and it looks like it's something that you could just pick up, but that stuff is hard, very hard. I had to break off some of it to see, the crystalline nature of it, but I really felt like I was on a moonscape. It wasn't easy to pick up. But it's an interesting kind of formation that just emphasizes the entropy that nature's going to play in this artwork. That shape is around us everywhere. It occurs naturally in conch shells. It occurs as cave art. So these are references that Smithson picked up on and tried to create something that looked as if it was almost primordial, like it had always been there. You can see it's probably best enjoyed by flying over it with a drone. I put some videos there to the side for you so that you could just take a moment and kind of have a Zen moment in your day, looking at this artwork from above, walking on it from eye level. It's really kind of an interesting place, and it informs artworks that will show up later. Here's Jean-Claude and Christo's running fence in California. Here's their wrapped islands, also site-specific earth art. Here is the wrapped Reichstag before it was redesigned to celebrate the reunification of Germany. And here is the artwork in the image set later that we'll talk about, the gates. This was an installation in New York City, temporary installation that used biodegradable materials. In keeping with earth art, the Christos didn't want to invade or set up anything permanently, so all of these materials were recycled. And they were trying to emphasize the natural pathways that were made part of the experiment that is Central Park today. So this is a tradition that will continue, and I thought it was interesting to show that to you today. So I'll leave it there. I think with your earthworks, you really want to talk about site-specific art or connect this stuff to places like the Serpent Mound, should you see it on the exam, okay? I will, like I said, leave it there and come back with some more. We're going to fill in the gaps of the 20th century by going back to some American moderns next. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good day.